dirty and crappy out on the roads, and
All right, it is 8:30. I call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. 5-minute time limit per person. Anyone wanting to speak during this agenda item must sign in prior to the start of the meeting. Any requested action items must be scheduled for a future meeting date. Do we have any citizens here? I don't see any. So we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. First of all, are there any changes to the agenda?
I don't have any.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments from the commission on the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We have an agenda. Motion carries. Item 5 is consent agenda items. We have approval of the minutes with documents, approval of the travel requests with documents, approval of personnel action notices with documents, approval of cellular authorizations with documents, and approval of the human services reports with documents. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any comments on any of the items? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce. Boersma. Aye. Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is routine business, approval of claims. We have 10/20/2020 claims, October Department of Revenue PDF also, and October cell phones. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Boersma. Aye. Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce. Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll start out with our department head reports. We're going to start with Brian, and he's got a report. It's in our packet.
Nice snowy morning we have here. We don't need to look at the top of my report, because as of this morning I spoke with the DOT representatives. Our plan was to close down that stretch of road on 20. But as of this morning, speaking with officials there, they are not planning on closing that road down until the weather would change. The grading they plan on doing now is going to take place between the structures and the approach slabs. Their fear is if we do open that intersection up that we might not be able to get that opened up this winter, or before, I shouldn't say before winter sets in, because we're sitting here right now as it's snowing. So I wanted to update you first and foremost on that. That was the contact I had this morning. Yesterday I was down and visited the site. They were removing the false work now that the bridge has gained compressive strength on the concrete deck pour that they performed last week. And they're going to work on the approach slabs or the sleeper slabs this week, an intent to get them poured and then tie into that with the grading. I guess, is there any questions on that? I know this snowstorm kind of came up out of nowhere, but that's what they're looking at doing right now. So if there's any questions from the commission, I can direct that towards them.
Are you talking about the bridges on 77?
On 77, yes.
Okay, because anybody listening wouldn't know when we said
Oh.
20. So we're talking about the bridges on 77. Are you thinking now they will not open in November?
We're looking at still opening that road, but the complete grading won't be done. So we might have to have a reduced speed limit when you're entering onto them bridges, but our intent is still to get them bridges open. The grading just might not be completed due to the weather constraints now that we're facing that.
Thank you.
And that was their fear of opening up that intersection, is they don't want to have that a gravel surface all winter long. just for a maintenance issue. So I guess that's all I have for the bridge update as far as the what the crew's been doing. This morning and yesterday we're mounting all of our snowplow equipment. We're intending to go out today. This morning on our way in, the roads were melting off, but now that we've seen a little bit of the cooler temperatures here, we know that we're going to have to go out, and the snowfall's intensifying here. We're looking at 5 to 8 inches is what's in the forecast, so we know that we're going to have to go out and plow the roads off. It is accumulating out there as we speak, but we will be out at shortly after 9 o'clock here today to start plowing the roads. So other than that, last week or a couple weeks ago, last week we finished up on placing the shoulder material on County Road 25. A little bit on the striping update. Talking with the officials out of the Watertown and Aberdeen office. We're kind of looking at, we might be stuck with our crooked striping this year, just due to the weather. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's kind of what we're looking at with our striping. Talking with that same DOT official, I don't think there's much we can do as of right now to inhibit that, to change it in any way, but we're going to be looking at a price reduction. So when that amount comes, I will provide that to you as the board. Also on 10/14/2020, I know Stacy has it probably later on in her report, most likely, as we did get the SDDOT bid concurrence for the structure north of Bruce from the DOT. So they did approve the bid tabulation and your guys' recommendation for bid proposal. So the only addition I wanted to add on to that is we have been working on improving the local detour routes. We brought in some gravel here last week and the week before onto those roads that we know that we would like the local traffic to stay on. As mentioned before, the main detour is going to be the interstate and Highway 81 for the out-of-town traffic. Aside from that, like I said, we're getting ready for snow removal. We're sitting really good on our salt sand storage. I know that we got later on in the meeting here, I believe, or it was last meeting, we got bids that were pretty favorable for salt. Last year the bids were about $89 a ton, and this year they're $74. So we're into winter all of a sudden.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a couple questions.
You may.
When we did our road and bridge tour, I forgot to ask this. How many small structures did the department do this year?
We're intending on doing 2. The issue we ran into is our production was put in when we ordered those culverts back in February, the construction or the production of those culverts was delayed until just about June. And we didn't receive notification from the supplier until late July, early August that those had been completed. And that kind of left us in a pickle because it run us right into harvest. And my fear on the one structure that was south of Volga was on County Road 5, and due to the harvest going on, I was hesitant on closing that structure down due to the harvest. And then obviously we would have been looking at starting at the beginning of October, and now we're here in the mid-October, and I don't know if we would have been done with that structure yet. So
Part of the selling point to have hire out the chip sealing and the other work was so that the department had more time to do the small structures. How much, what did we do instead of that?
We installed nearly 40 culverts this year on not only our chip seal routes, but a lot of our gravel road routes. That some of those structures, and one in particular up by Hendricks, had been sitting for nearly 4 years and that it had not been installed. And with the drier conditions, we were able to get that done. And that was a lot of the work that we focused on this year, was those structures that had been sitting there that had not been getting done. And that's what we focused on this year, because we had the chance to do it last year. We wouldn't have been able to do that just because of the water levels. And we did get caught up on a lot of our structures. Now we have 2 that are on order that are completed, and we'll be looking at doing those next year, weather dependent.
So those 40 culverts that we did, and that's great. Can you tell me, do you have a list then of culverts that we need to be working on? How many are on that list? I'd like to have a feel for the backlog.
I can get that to you. I don't have it with me right now, but we had planned on, now there again, I had given you guys my 5-year plan back in June. We had planned on doing 2 additional structures below 20 feet next year. Whether or not we move forward with them, I guess that we'll have to talk about that. But with those 4 structures, looking to take 2 to 3 weeks apiece, you know, that eats up a pretty good portion of our time.
Right.
So, you know, looking at doing those structures, I know in the past that they had hired a contractor, and what the county has done now is we've still hired a contractor, but as far as we hire out the crane ourselves, and we can kind of schedule it on our part rather than paying for the crane to be there the whole time.
Do you know the river bridges? I think we've got 1.3 million in that line item on our budget. Do you know how much has not been billed out of that yet? What are we waiting for invoices yet on those bridges?
On the structures south of town,
On
I
77.
do have a report. Do you have the ability to pull that up, Stacy?
And while she's pulling that up, are you thinking we'll get those bills in this fiscal year, or are they going to come next fiscal year? What do you think?
Now that the grading will be delayed, we won't see the full amount, is what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Okay.
The intent is that we would get the full bills this year. I believe it's in the neighborhood of $455,000. The last time I looked at it, but if Stacy has the ability to pull that report up, I have made this available to Stacy and to Vicky's office, or we're working on. I believe it's the P drive. Didn't he create the P drive? Okay.
Maybe next time
I will
at
get
our next
that.
meeting you could
Yep, I will get
report
that for you.
on that, so we have an idea how much of that money we need to be planning for this year and for next year. And then my last question, sorry guys,
But can I add to that though?
go ahead.
Because we have 1.3 million set aside for the payment of these bridges, right?
So we actually have 1.3 million budgeted this year, which we thought initially was going to be the Bruce Bridge.
Yep.
So instead of doing the extra kind of legwork, we're paying the bills now using that 1.3, because we did have that also set aside in fund balance, right? So we're using the current budget to pay for the bills for the river bridges. What I'm going to bring to you next week is some unassignments and reassignments and new assignments within fund balance, because we're going to reduce that fund balance assignment for the river bridges and get rid of it altogether, and then assign some of those dollars, 1.1 of that, because the Bruce Bridge came in, the bid came in so low. 1.1 will assign for the Bruce Bridge for next year, but we're not, and it sounds like they're going to start on that in January. Of course, all, things dependent on Mother Nature, but, so we have money in the budget this year to pay for those bills for the river bridges coming in. And then whatever is left this year that goes unspent for the river bridges, if there are bills that just don't come in yet in fiscal year 20, once we roll that into fund balance, and one of our first actions at the beginning of 21 will be to assign those dollars in fund balance to the river bridges so that we can then take those or supplement them, whichever kind of comes first, supplement them back in the budget so we can finish paying those bills. So that
I was
may
thinking-
not be,
But I was thinking we already had 1.3 assigned for the river bridge that we shouldn't need to assign anymore.
we don't have to assign it anymore. We're actually spending the money from this year's budget on the river bridges.
But to answer Ryan's question, in the 201 fund, we have $1.3 million assigned to the river bridges.
We do, yes, but we're not going to use those dollars for the river bridges because we're using budgeted dollars, right, for the bills that came in this year. So what we're going to do is take that and kind of reassign those dollars for the Bruce Bridge now. That has been bid.
Yeah, we'll have another discussion on this, but that's my struggle with the whole process is that 1.3 should have been gone by now and already assigned, and not our budget paying for it, but the 1.3 paying for it. Because now we're using 1.1 of that to pay for the Bruce Bridge, which if we do the exact same thing, we're still not going to use it.
But yes, we've had this discussion, and we're trying to get to a point where we're not doing that, Ryan, but we're still at a point where we had some of these dollars in fund balance that we should have supplemented and spent, but we didn't. We have to kind of get rid of those and get to a place where we know that, okay, we're budgeting this year, but it's going to roll into fund balance, and then we're going to assign it for a subsequent year. So I know what your concern is, and we're trying to get to that point. We just kind of got to clean up everything that we've done in the past.
Okay.
So we're getting there. You and I are on the same page with it. It may not sound like it, but we just need to get to a point where we can start doing that. But it takes a year after year to do that. It just doesn't happen overnight. So.
Well, the thing that concerns me is that when we sit here or when we're reviewing the financial documents in the packet, there's no way to tell how much of that $1.3 million we've already paid out on the bridge. Can we, when we have a fund like where that 1.3 is assigned to the Highway 77 bridges, can we not pay bills out of that? We have to move it back over to the
No, we cannot pay bills directly. That is not a budget line. That's
Okay.
just money in fund balance. That's not budget authority. We don't have budget authority to spend that until we give ourselves budget authority and put it in the budget to spend.
So then, like the Basin Bridge, we're done with the Basin Bridge, right?
Yes, and that's part of the assignments that we have that I'm bringing to you next week is to just
Okay.
get rid of those dollars as an assignment.
And have all the bills come in on the Basin Bridge? Are there any
Oh, yeah.
outstanding bills?
That's done.
That's completed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It is completed.
That's completed? Okay. And then my last question. Where are we at on the Sinai Bridge? Have you heard on what's going on?
We're still waiting on the redesign, final approval from the DOT. I know I mentioned this before, and I provided the board with a letter, earlier this year, I know it was. With the change scour requirements, they had to redesign that structure. So that added six to 8 months onto that schedule.
So the last time you reported, we thought it was going to get bid out this fall.
I was hoping it was gonna get let out this fall, but we have not received the final approval back. And I had just spoken with Colin on this also. They had submitted the plans, in early August for the complete redesign, due to the change scour requirements. Now we're waiting on the approval back, or preliminary approval back from the DOT to move forward with those plans. We could still be looking at bidding that in early of '21. is what I'm hoping for now. I know it's not the news you guys wanted to hear, but that's, with the changed scour requirements, it's not any extra cost to the county, because we had already been awarded the 800, or the 1.6, which our half was at 50/50, so it's 811,000 is what it ended up costing us. That's what we have as given by the DOT. They will be footing the additional length of that structure to satisfy those scour requirements.
So have either you or Colin talked to the DOT recently?
Yes,
What are they saying?
we have been in contact with them, not only on the Sinai structure, but on the Bruce structure, because we're going through the process on that. So, you know, in our conversations, we're trying to help push them along. It's a process, and I'm a little frustrated too, because I want some answers also.
I've got one. Back to the small structures, those boxes have been made.
They have been made, yes.
Do we have to pay for them now, or do we wait till they're delivered?
If you guys remember, when I first started, that was one of the first questions that I know you would ask me, Larry, is when we get the bill for those, they're saying it's for storage, but we're actually paying for those structures at that point in time. So yeah, we can push it off. That's what ended up happening with those structures, is I paid for them the year that we put them in. So we could pay for them next year, or we could pay for them this year.
Okay.
What dollar amount are we talking about there?
80,000.
Yeah, roughly.
Anything else? Any other questions? Anything else in your report?
That's it, other than it's snowing.
Okay. Thank you. Marty isn't able to be here. He passed out a report. Any comments on the report?
No, just his every meeting that he passes out the detention center and 24/7 information that he handed that out this morning and then left for the day. So.
Okay, thank you. Vicki, I'm going to wait for your report until the end, since we have some other items for action. We'll go to Bob Hill. Mr. Hill.
We had our PPCC meeting, second Thursday in October. We are just literally waiting for Department of Health to send out the guidelines on what we're going to do. We spoke about this before. The PPCC for Brookings County, and we're ready, just waiting for instructions from higher headquarters would be the best way to put it. Either today or tomorrow, it's on my calendar, I'm speaking to the Brookings School District about in our emergency operations plan, it has to be reviewed yearly. And in the local emergency operations plan, it talks under the transportation section. It talks about using school buses in case of an emergency. And I guess I've never had a discussion with the Brookings School District, and I'm going to start with them this time, and then we'll move on to the Elkton and Sioux Valley and Dual school districts, just to make sure everyone understands what we're talking about when it's in the emergency operations plan, what we expect in case something happens. And obviously, Beta's involved in it too, but we'd only use them in case of a dire emergency where we had to evacuate a lot of people real quick, and of course, their schools would be involved with that also. It's not, when it comes to emergency management, one segment of the population is never affected. It's typically the whole community. So I am talking to them on that. My Thursday radio show is going great. We put the information out on Commissioner Pierce's recommendation, and they took it. I got some good information from Ms. Berg, and they've actually been taking that information and saying it on other radio stations, not just my little 15 minutes of fame, and they do a good job for us. We do have an ad hoc drainage meeting next Monday, October 26, 2020, in this room. We're trying to get hold of different organizations to come and talk about easements and how you can treat land that's under like federal easement. It's not going real good. Some of the people I'm having to deal with is people we've dealt with in the past, and drainage is never a happy subject. I'll just leave it at that. We are working on actually starting to get back up onto our zoning ordinance update. I've got my staff right now, we're assembling a book. We're gonna put all the changes up until now into a book. We're gonna make 4 copies of that book. We're gonna send that out, and then and this is at the recommendation of Commissioner Pierce and State's Attorney Nelson. We're gonna have meetings. Some meetings will be in person. Some meetings will be on the telephone conference call deal. But we got to get this thing off kilter. It's been sitting there too long. We can do it. We'll get it done and get it moving. COVID numbers are not decreasing right now at all. And we did have a zoning meeting October 6, 2020. We got some plats coming up later that we will discuss. And that's all I have. Any questions? Oh, and on Friday, I'm taking a day of vacation to take the DAV van. We really need, if anyone out there is in a situation where they can volunteer for the DAV van, I'll steal some of Mike's thunder. We need volunteers to drive that DAV van. I'm in a situation where Friday I can take 8 hours vacation and do it. But it'd be real nice if we could get retired people to help us out and drive the van and get our veterans down to the VA.
Bob, with that, is there any special, do you have to have special license to drive, or?
You have to have training, and Mike can tell you a lot more, but you have to go down to the VA, and they actually give you a DOT physical. And then they give you a little card saying you can drive and for how long, and then they give you a fingerprint. You have to have fingerprints checked with the FBI to make sure you're not a...
You have to have passenger endorsement on it?
No.
No. Okay.
It's a regular, like a 4-passenger, 5-passenger van, or you see our Ford Explorer out there, that type of vehicle. I have driven for the VA because I do have a CDL with the B air brakes, and I've driven some of their buses without the actual passenger endorsement. That's because of the federal government. They can do what they want, apparently. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Dustin, we'll take your report on the BCOAC.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Last meeting, we've had 91 in the gun range, and we've had 68 in we had 91 in our archery range and 68 in our gun range. That gun range number is down quite a bit due to the price of ammo, and if you find it, it's extremely high. It's probably tripled in price. The events we've had, GFMP, they had one person come qualify in the gun range. SDSU Republicans, they came in for the first time and had a little meeting in our classroom. Brookings County Republicans, they had their monthly meeting this last Saturday. JOAD was in on Sunday, Monday, and did their weekly shoot. We had a basic pistol class yesterday. Due to the high level of interest in that class, we scheduled another one for December. We actually had a gentleman drive down from Aberdeen 2 days in a row to attend that class. This week we have a blood drive tomorrow. On Saturday, Valley City football team's coming down, and they're going to eat in our archery range before they go play Dakota State. A little bit of maintenance around the building. Before I started, you guys had some pipes freeze in the building. So we got some heat tape put in those drains. And then the GFP offices, there was a pipe that froze, I guess, so we got some insulation put on that. AMP has started the generator hookup process. He talked about killing power this Friday. I don't know if that's going to happen now due to the snow, and he's still waiting on some parts, but that has started. A little bit of marketing for the building. I met with Visit Brookings, the 3 gals that work for them. They did a little tour. I kind of told them what we had to offer, what we're kind of about, and where we want to go with the facility. So hopefully we can work with them in the future. And they actually had an intern who came out and he did a little story on the building, and that should be put in a brochure next year, he said. You guys have any questions? That's all I had.
Any questions?
Thank
Hearing
you.
none. Thanks, Dustin. Mike?
good morning.
Morning.
And yeah, Bob did take some of my thunder. As far as a special license, it is about, you got to do about 2 trips down to the VA. The physical, they do a EKG and see if you can read a sign. That's pretty straightforward. The other part of it is that they do make sure that you have a current license and that you all have current insurance on your car, just so that they can tell that you're insurable. And we do have a shortage of van drivers. Quite a few of our van drivers are older, and some of them do have health problems. So COVID has really affected them. I know at least 3 of the 12 that are out for that, and a couple others decided that it was time for them to quit driving the van. So we kind of go from high to low, and sometimes we'll have a lot of drivers, and then at this particular point in time, it has been greatly reduced. One of the things that the DAV van coordinator insists that everybody in the van wears a mask. There's also face shields for those that have problems with using a mask. Once the van is taken down and you've dropped the veteran off, there is disinfectant, and so you disinfect the entire inside of the van. Earlier they're having us roll down the windows for 15 minutes and wiping it all down, which are precautions that in case there's any residual virus in the vehicle that should be aired out at that time. So we do encourage people to come down and see us about signing up for the DAV van. And with COVID being one of our main things of concern on the welfare side, you probably noticed that our reports are getting a little larger because now they're starting to do the landlords are starting to do some of the eviction notices, and also the BMU and some of the other utility companies are starting to do the shutoffs, and so we've been hit pretty hard with those. One thing that's helped us a lot, and you'll probably notice on there that we say partial payment on a utility bill, because we have been using a lot of money from the low-income energy assistance program. And I said earlier that some of these reconnect fees are over $1,000. We did have one that was $3,000. Luckily, most all of that was covered by the energy low-income energy assistance program, and so that helped us out immensely. In those cases, we usually, and again with your guidance, we go $650 is where we pretty much cap any of the payments, whether it be rent or utilities. If someone contacts us and needs help with rent or utilities, and the reason that they're out is because they're a 14-day quarantine, at that point we still do those applications by mail. And last thing is on the 15th of October, we did have a housing board meeting here in the building. We have a pretty good cushion, so we're about, we spend about what we get, which is what we're supposed to do. There is one thing that we're putting in there as far as if someone has an overpayment, in other words, they didn't pay as much rent as they were supposed to because either someone had went to work or another person had moved into the household, then they set up a repayment program. We've now made it that if you've done that twice, you'll be taken off of housing unless you pay the full bill in at that time. So, but that was the one big change on that.
Mike, when you say the housing board, are you talking about RAM, that board?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if anyone wants to see the change that we made, it'll be going, and I will turn it over once we're done voting on it, because we put together, now we're voting by text or email, I should say, by email. It will go into the book that's already online. It's under our website, has the housing, Brookings Housing and Redevelopment manual is online under Brookings County, and we will make that change and add it to that.
Do they have vouchers, and do they have houses?
Right now, I thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Right now, we do have money and vouchers left. Anyone that can come on, the quickest I've ever seen it done was 2 weeks, and part of that is just to get you got to get the paperwork in, then they do an interview, then you go out and find a place to live. The place has to be inspected, but we've had them come in as little as 2 weeks. Most time it takes longer, and part of the reason it takes longer is they might not have the interview process. She's been doing them pretty much as they come in, but you get the voucher, and then you have to go find a place to live. And a lot of times it's that part of it, and contacting the landlords that take a little longer to get that process done, and some people don't go immediately out looking for a place. So a lot of the delays are not necessarily the housing, but quite a few of the delays is actually the people that are looking for housing not getting their part done quickly.
Who is the she that's running the program now?
How's that?
You said she. Who is it that's running that now?
Oh, right now, the owner of Ram Enterprises is Rich.
Right, but our local person, who is that?
Right down here are the people in our office here are Rose, and I can't think of her last name. And the other one that's doing the other part of it is Holly. And Holly used, and again, I can't remember her last name, but she used to be one of the correctional officers, I believe, here. So.
Thank you.
But yeah, anyone looking for housing right now to get a voucher, I encourage them to contact Brookings Housing at 692-1670. I wish it has clever meaning to it, but.
All right, that completes your report?
Yep.
Any questions? Any further questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. Vicki, or Sid-
Good morning.
Good morning.
To give you an had over 5,222 absentee ballots that have been returned or voted in downstairs. We've got about 1,000 that are still out waiting to come in by mail or if people have gotten them. Yesterday was the last day to register to vote, and we had over 300 absentees yesterday downstairs, so it's been very busy. We have 1,115,216 that we've received in CARES Act money. So pretty much everything that we've reported to the state, we've been reimbursed for. So we will have more to be reimbursed as the payroll. We can't ask for money until we've dispersed it. So as the payroll goes, we'll have more money by the end of the year to ask for that. And you should have received in your packet the finance officer's report, and we are at 26.96% for general fund surplus analysis, and that is probably the 10-year average is around 20%, and I think that most of that is due to the CARES Act money we've received, so we do have an overabundance in the general fund at this time. And we've had, this month we will do the quarterly highway transfers, the fourth quarter highway transfers of $750,000. And also we'll have the be it noted items, the auditor's account with the treasurer, the payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditure report, and the register of deeds statement of fees. Any questions that anybody has?
Any questions? Commissioner Pierce.
I'm sorry. When you look at the fund balance report, we've talked about this before, and I think Stacy's going to be working on some things for our next meeting. But that $500,000 that's assigned on the administration building, it's my recollection that shouldn't be assigned like that. Is that
Correct.
right?
We're going to unassign that next week, or at the next meeting. Sorry.
Okay. Right. So that's going to be taken care of. Okay. Thank you.
Any
I
other
have
questions?
one more question. I'm sorry.
You may.
On the jail, when we look at that fund balance report, and on the report itself, we've got $5,470,000 assigned in the general fund, and then we've got in the building fund, we have $2,463,985. And then I think our bond is 7.4 million, is that right?
Yes.
So these numbers, and I know you tried to explain this to me, and I can't remember what the answer is. How much out of the 304 fund would go on payment of the total that we'll owe on the building as opposed to bond payments?
Okay, the 304 fund is all detention center.
Mhm.
So that 718,000 is money that we've received for taxes. And of that, we have paid a few bills for professional services out of there, but that is what it is in the fund balance right now, is 718,000, and then we'll receive approximately 500,000 this year in that fund.
So
For
that
taxes.
money can be applied toward the total building cost?
Yes,
So we think we've got maybe another 1.2 million out of that fund?
Yes.
That'll go toward the total cost on the jail?
right.
So when you add all that up, which I'm,
It's about 16 million, a little over 16 million.
and our total cost that we're estimating on the jail now is what? Does anybody know that figure?
So the construction costs are
Mhm.
just under 15.2.
Okay,
The GMP with Henry Carlson was 15,193 something, I think, something like that. About 15, just shy of 15.2. I believe there are a couple $1 million in soft costs that are not accounted for in that total as well.
so we're figuring we're going to need 17 million, a little over maybe 17.2 million.
17.2.
And how close are we in what we've got set aside? I'm only asking that, I just want to know, I'd like to go into next year having the jail money set aside that we need.
We're really, really close, and what with the fund balance being what it is, I mean, it's much higher right now than it normally is this time of year. Like Vicki had noted, with this CARES Act money that just goes into general fund. We'll be looking at the opportunity to do some of those assignments again within the general fund. We're also going to unassign that $500,000 for the admin building, which just is going to increase our percentage even more. So I think there's going to be some opportunities at the end of the year to assign some additional funds towards the jail project. And then, once we feel comfortable, as those bills come in and as the commission, however the commission wants to do that, what we would do is then do a supplemental budget hearing and move those dollars from the general fund, the building fund, into the 304 fund to be spent on the jail. And we'll move those dollars, we'll probably do some lump sums as we go through. I don't want to start transferring it out of there until we absolutely need to, especially out of the general fund, because then it can't be, I think anything that's left over, I think would have to go back to the building fund, to the 301 fund, since it was put into a special fund for a building project, if that makes sense. So the dollars in the general fund are the dollars I want to spend last for this, but I think at the end of this year, there'll be some opportunities to make some assignments in the general fund and to get us to where we need to be for the jail project.
So you'll come back to us with that kind of all added up?
Yes, and we need to
then-
look at that, as we get closer to year end, we'll look at that and bring recommendations to the board as to what that looks like and where that leaves us with our percentage of general fund balance.
So that won't be part of the supplemental stuff we'll do at our next meeting
No,
then?
it will not.
Thank you.
Mr. Krogman, go ahead.
Again, a little bit my concern is I think we just paid a $200,000 bill to Henry Carlson, right?
Yes, and that
Okay.
came out of that 304 fund.
That did come out
Yes,
of the
that
304.
all of the expenses for the jail have been coming out of that 304 fund.
So I guess one of my thoughts would be is, and I don't know if we can do this, is like, for example, if we feel we're gonna pay for, the bridge, Bruce Bridge, and we had it's gonna be all paid out this year probably, and we had $1 million set aside for that, can we just transfer that $1 million into the general fund, if that's where we're gonna pay it out of, or whatever fund we're paying it out of, put it in at the first of the year, and then we can pay those bills out of that, and we know that it's coming from that money we transferred in? Or do we always have to wait to pay it out of the fund and then try to supplemental budget?
I think we're talking two different, you're talking road and bridge fund is completely separate from anything else that we would do with the jail. I mean, there's no, road and bridge fund money can't be used for the jail project at
Well,
all.
I understand that,
But you're
it's
asking,
similar type of thing. There's fund balance in our general fund for the detention center, just like there's money in our general fund for the road and bridge.
right,
And I just don't want the same thing that seems to be happening in the road and in the highway department as the detention center, that we end up filling in.
and we
money.
can do those supplemental budgets at any time, and I prefer to do the supplemental budget and get those dollars in the budget, so you have budget authority to spend them before we overspend a budget. That's the proper way to do it, and that's the intent, for us to be watching that. You know, the first thing that's gonna happen that we're gonna see is, we probably won't see it on this particular thing, on this particular page in fund balance, but we're gonna get those bond dollars before the end of the year, and that's all gonna go into the 304 fund. So those, we will spend down that first. Absolutely, we're gonna spend those dollars first, because we have to. Those have to be. And then from there, I see us doing a supplemental budget for the 2.4 million that's in the 301 fund and transferring those over. And then the very last dollars to be transferred over will be those dollars that we have set aside within the general fund. Because once you move them, you can't move them back, basically. So,
Stacy, are you saying we can't pay bills out of the 301 fund? We have to move it, we can't move out of the 301 fund, so.
we can move the 301 to the 304 because they're similar special project, building capital type project up. We can for this.
And we can pay bills out of the 304.
And we have been. All of our detention center costs to date have been coming out of the 304 fund.
And that's how we would keep track of the total we've spent so far?
Yes, it's going to have this whole project is going to have its very own fund. And then once the project is over and complete and we are completely done, we'll end up, several years down the road closing out that fund. But until then, this fund will track all of the expenses for the project.
The 924,000 we have as restricted fund balance in county building in the 301, what's that money for again?
That is basically the fund balance within that fund. It's unassigned, but it's considered restricted because it's in the 301 fund and it has to be there for capital type projects.
So
But it's not assigned to anything in particular right now.
we could use that for the
We
jail.
could use some of that as
Okay.
well. However, you don't want to spend that down to zero because that is, just like the general fund has a surplus cash, that's your surplus cash in the 301 fund. Highway has the same thing. We have this 2.5 million. It says assigned fund balance for road purposes, but that's really your fund balance or your surplus cash in your 201 fund. So the only fund where the 40%, you have to be under the 40% a year, and the only fund that it applies to is general fund, though. The rest of them can be whatever we need them to be. Yeah.
Do we pay bills out of the road and bridge fund 201?
Yes. Yeah. All of the any highway bill comes out of the 201 fund.
Part of that 924, is that highway shop renovation or no?
In the 301?
Right.
No.
If-
No.
And the 750 we're transferring right now is from where?
That's from general fund.
To the road and bridge?
Yes, and
So
to
if we-
balance the budget, we had $3 million with 4 quarterly transfers that we transfer from general fund to road and bridge
And we have been doing that throughout the
for
year.
a number.
Right, but-
This is a routine action.
And so the 1.3 that's sitting there is not, why wouldn't we use the 1.3 that's sitting there rather than transfer 750,000 back into there? Because we got 5.49 sitting in road and bridge fund and we continue to fill that in. Why don't we use the 1.3 that's there that we're spending on River Bridge stuff rather than making those transfers.
So we're not transferring budget authority, we're transferring cash to balance.
Right.
So we can't just spend that 1.3. We don't have budget authority right now to spend the 1.3. In the next couple of weeks, next week we're going to do a bunch of assignments and clean up some of this. This will start making a lot more sense after next week once we get some of this cleaned up. And then we'll do a supplemental budget hearing on the second meeting in November to give ourselves budget authority to spend some of those dollars. We will be doing that.
There's no questions or comments? Vicki, anything else? All right, so let's move on to, you can just stay there if you'd like, if we need to. Item I here is action to approve the following transfer as per budget appropriations for the fourth quarter of 2020 from General Fund 101-4-911-4290 to Highway, Road, and Bridge Fund 201-3-371-0000 in the amount of $750,000. Or is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments? I think we probably discussed this. Vicki, does anybody have any questions on this as a routine transfer? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll. Thank you, Vicki.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Under, we don't have any scheduled agenda items today, so we'll move into regular business. Item A is an action to approve resolution number 20-59, a plat of Lot 1 of Weese's Addition in the northwest quarter section of Section 24, Township 109 North, Range 52 West of the 5th Prime Meridian in Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir, we heard, the planning commission heard this on October 6th, 2020, regular zoning meeting, passed it unanimously and sent it to this board with the recommendation that you guys approve it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Comments or questions from the commission? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma? Aye. Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B is an action to approve resolution number 20-60, a plat of Lot 1 of Dahl Addition in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 110 North, Range 51 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments?
This one was also heard October 6th, 2020, sent to this board with the recommendation that you approve it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma? Aye. Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item C is an action to approve resolution number 20-61, a plat of lots 1 and 2 of the Uphelt Addition in the northwest one-quarter section of Section 3, Township 109 North, Range 48 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Bob, Clock, comments?
Once again, we heard it on October 6th, passed unanimously and sent to this board with the recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Any comments from the commission? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Boersma? Aye. Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item D is an action to approve agreement number 20-55, a retail sales agreement between Brookings County and AVI Systems, Inc. for audio upgrades in Courtroom A at the Brookings County Courthouse. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, and we'll have a report.
Well, this is something that we've been discussing for a while. I believe we reviewed the contracts from both AVI Systems and Mid-States Audio and Video and opted to go with AVI Systems. I have talked to the AVI Systems representative, and they are looking at installation the week of actually Thanksgiving, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which even though Hobo Day isn't happening, Hobo Day is going to happen. And that is actually the week before the first anticipated court date of those follow-ups, so it won't be
any busier than normal, fortunately. For that, they will start with one courtroom, probably courtroom B, which isn't used on Mondays, and do the replacement in courtroom B Monday into Tuesday, and then courtroom A on Tuesday into Wednesday.
Sounds good. We need to get it accomplished before the end of the year, so that sounds good.
I did talk to Vicky as well, and there hasn't been a deadline set for CARES Act money by the state, so we're still operating under the assumption that it is December 31st.
Any other questions or comments? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Excuse me, Boersma?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Jeez, I'm glad somebody else made a mistake for a change
Sorry
instead of
about
me.
that.
I get to vote twice. All right. Item E is an action to approve agreement number 20-56, a retail sales agreement between Brookings County and AVI Systems, Inc. for audio upgrades in courtroom B at the Brookings County Courthouse. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, same report.
Same, yeah,
All right.
same idea.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item F is an action to approve automatic supplement in the Emergency Management Department for reimbursement from a Homeland Security grant to General Ledger line 226-4-222-4390, receipt number 519893 in the amount of $4,088. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Comments? Robert, any comments?
This is just a Department of Homeland Security grant that we got to get a dual band P25 capable radio. I'll keep in my office, and in an emergency case, we can transfer it over to our trailer and haul it out to the field site.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma? Aye. Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we're going to move on to item G is approval of board appointments. We're going to try and take each one as a group. We'll start with item I here, Brookings Health System Board of Trustees. There's one position, a 3-year term. We have one applicant, Marianne Krog, with documents. And so we'll look for a motion to approve that one.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, as the ex officio on the health system board, she's a current member. She's the dean of nursing at SDSU and very qualified, and very fortunate to have her on the board with her knowledge, and so would highly recommend approving her to another 3-year term.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item is the Extension Board. There are 6 positions. They're 1-year terms. We have applicants for 6. We have Deborah Ford, Rhonda Houtman, Ronnie Parmalee, Jennifer Pickard, Laura Stern, and Richard Waldner. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments or questions on those appointments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations to that group. Next one is Brookings County 4-H Promotion and Expansion Committee. There are 2 positions, 2-year terms. We have one applicant, Joel Foster. At this point, we have no applicant for by the deadline, so we'll be re-advertising that second position. Is there a motion to approve Joel Foster?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments or questions? Comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Joel. Next one is Planning and Zoning Commission, 2 positions for a 4-year term. We have Chad Ford for District 4 and Spencer Dietrich for District 4, or District 2, District 4. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments or questions on that appointment?
I have a question for Bob. Is Mr. Dietrich, is he currently an alternate?
Yes, ma'am, he is.
So
Yeah.
then, how do we fill the alternate position if he's appointed then?
We'll have to, by the end of the year, we'll have to advertise for another alternate position.
And that's, we do advertise those? I just couldn't
Believe
remember.
so, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We will, there were several positions that didn't receive applications, so we're going to start re-advertising those yet this week. And with now the appointment of Mr. Dietrich to a full-time position, so to speak, on the board, on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we will advertise that alternate position along with those other ones that did not receive applications.
Any other questions or comments? Any comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next one is the Weed and Pest Board. Board, one position, 3-year term. We have one applicant, Joel Ripley. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Joel. Passes. Next one is the BCOAC Advisory Board. There are 5 positions, 1-year terms. We have 4 applicants at this time, so we don't have an applicant for the archery range. We will be re-advertising that one, I believe. So at this point, we have Andy Dupre as the 4-H leader and/or extension board member, Terry Went, the 4-H shooting sports member, Arden Siegel, the OAC pistol range volunteer, Tim Reed, the community at large member. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I just have a question. Are all of the board positions 1-year appointments? Is that something that we should look at? Because 1 year is not very long, and I just want to throw that out. We don't decide that now, but I just want to, and Dustin's here to have a conversation about maybe that should be a longer term.
When we first
consideration.
drafted the bylaws for the BCOAC board, we made them 1-year appointments. I think it was with the thought to, kind of as this was new, and we wanted to, give people opportunity to, to apply if they wanted to. I don't know that there's a reason not to make that a longer term, but the bylaws then would need to be changed for that advisory board because they are listed as 1-year appointments right now.
Is that something we could talk about at the next board meeting to see if there's interest in that? Or can we decide that here, or make it into 3-year, or
We certainly can, but it's more, I think, our decision than it
Okay.
is more the board's.
All right,
Or, I mean,
sounds good.
I think we can get some, feedback. I guess, sometimes you got to be careful that if you have it too long a term, some people may not sign up because they don't
Yeah.
want to commit for that amount of time. But I don't see a problem if we maybe wanted to move it to 2 years, and most people will be willing to serve 2. We've had, some real good consistency with a lot of our board members here, which is fabulous. So we don't have to, but, and we have got a couple new ones, which is good too. But I mean, I don't think it'd be a problem unless
Yeah.
you guys thought at least have a 2-year. So.
I think if you're a new board person, spend the first year learning. So.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is we could stagger some of them. Then if we do have, 1 or 2 that we could have, 2 or 3 of them come up 1 year, and then 2 or 3 of them come up another year. That way you don't have a complete overhaul of a new board and learn less. And if for some reason 3 or 4 of them are unable to serve a second, again.
Well, I think some of them, if their children are not in the program anymore, they're probably not volunteering.
Yeah.
That's why on a couple of these positions, but there's a couple in here that sure they could be 2 and 3.
I guess I would say, Dustin, that since you're the director there, that if you have a position on how you'd like this structured, you can certainly bring it to us
Okay.
for approval. If you want to talk to the board that's out there previously to that, you can have a discussion, but I think you make the recommendation to us and then we do the consideration. Is that correct with everybody? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations to those people, and thank you for the volunteering. Last one is the First District Planning Board. There's one position, a 2-year term. At this point, we have no applicants, so we will be re-advertising for that position. So if you know anybody that would be interested in that, talk to us and talk to Stacy and get an application in. Item 9 is the Commission Department Director's Report.
So Vicki kind of already looked at the surplus and bring that up. So yeah, just shy of 27%, 26.96%. If you look at the 10-year average, we are, well above, which is, the average is about 20%. So well above that 10-year average with that. So that's, again, probably more than likely due to that additional CARES Act funding that we've been receiving. I've also put on if you've been getting the weekly updates from Jackie Lanning on the I-29 20th Street South Interchange project, there is this notice of draft environmental assessment availability that actually hit the website at 5 o'clock last night. So there's some information for you there. Deadline to make comments is Thursday, November 19th. So you have about a month to do that, and the website is listed there on my report. Couple other things before I get into the work plan. Commissioners Boersma and Jensen and I met with representatives from the city of Volga last week to discuss the Samara Avenue project, and they will probably have some updates there as well. But what we're looking at doing is drafting an RFP to get engineering services for that project to start moving that forward. So both of those, Angie and Larry may have some additional updates on that as part of their report. Handed out to you this morning, believe it or not, I'm starting to look at the 2021 calendar. I handed that out. It should be in front of you. A couple things to note, we meet the first and third Tuesdays, and next year that really works quite nicely. Except for December, we always wait and have a meeting right at the end of the year as we have any last kind of end of the year type items. Looking at that, I think we could maybe meet the 7th and the 28th if you don't want to have two meetings back to back that month. We could, if I guess looking for board direction, if you would rather not meet 3 times, we could meet the 7th and the 28th. Just know that the 28th then would be more of a regular meeting with some more items rather than just year-end wrap-up. Any thoughts on that?
I just want to ask a question. I get the 28th. The problem that when we have that meeting is that if one of us would, and that's kind of an important conversation that we have on the budget stuff at that point. If anybody wants to take a vacation between Christmas and New Year's, they don't have that option. Is it not possible to address the budget issues on the 21st as opposed to on the 28th so that there would be, to alleviate that problem? And maybe nobody else thinks that would be an issue, but I know that that's an issue.
I agree. It's usually as family.
Exactly.
That last week is usually something we look at quite often for vacation.
We could sure try it, meet on the 21st, and try to get as much wrapped up. And then if we look at something and we say, oh crap, we need to meet, we can maybe try to throw in a special meeting and let people, if it's needed.
It just
we could just try.
Like we couldn't have dealt with that in the past, in the last
Some of it,
2 years.
yeah, some of it is just getting those last claims in that last time and then running those reports and seeing the numbers after that last meeting, because then we would typically not pay bills that meeting. So we kind of see a clearer picture, but even then, we would know. It would just maybe mean we would probably not have, it'd probably be some more handouts rather than items actually in the packet, as we'd probably be working on things right up until the day before the meeting perhaps. But we could sure give it a try and see. And then if there is something that's critical that comes up, we may still need to convene that last week with whoever would be available.
We could do that as a virtual meeting if we had to.
And the problem with that meeting between Christmas and New Year's, it's just not us. It's none of our staff can go anywhere over the holiday either. It would just be nice if we could free that up.
We can sure try that. I know this year we could look at it for this year. I don't have that right here in front of me at my fingertips, but I think there's a third meeting this year as well, so we could maybe look at, I think the way it falls this year is just, it's mid-December. It's a little bit more difficult this year, but we can sure take a look at that too, so. And the other thing to note too is I put a little asterisk in our conference dates, the NACO Weir conference. I know it will be out in California, and I'm guessing on those dates right now, the May 11th through the 14th. I'm kind of going off what historically has been the dates of that conference in the past. They haven't officially set the dates yet for NACO Weir in 2021. I keep watching the NACO website to see, and they keep telling me that this is pending and will be coming soon. So that's sort of an assumption right now. And I think they've tried to shorten it up. I have the 11th. It's probably more like the 12th through the 14th, although 11th if you plan to go, maybe a travel day if going way out west. So just kind of keep that in mind as I get information on that, or when they get that posted, I'll be sharing that. So, and then included with my report was the work plan. Instead of having this as a separate kind of agenda item, I just kind of added this as part of my staff report now. You can see the items if you can see the green. It's kind of hard to see on the copy, but so the river bridges I updated. We're hoping to have those completed here yet this fall. The Sinai Bridge is still in pink because we haven't had any updates, as Brian had said. We were hoping for a bid this fall, but we're still kind of staying on top of that. The Bruce Bridge now, we did the bid in October, or we bid this, I don't know if it was October. Was it just October that we bid this, or was it in September, October? And of course, that one came in quite a bit under the engineer's estimate, so that was good. And I think from what I'm hearing, they're planning to start construction on that right away after the first of the year. We received the one local federal bridge grant. We approved the 5-year plan recently. Township grant dollars. We have paid Oakwood for their project. I'm still waiting to hear from Volga Township on they were approved for a grant this year, but I haven't seen anything from them yet as far as if they've gotten that project done or not. We might have to reach out to some of those folks and see where they're at with that, because we want those submitted before year end. Jail expansion, now we can say that we're underway with construction, and we held the groundbreaking a few weeks ago. If you haven't been by there recently, the street is tore up. It's so it definitely looks like things are moving forward over there.
Stacy, on that, when you do your next update, will you put in the estimated completion date?
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then moving forward, nothing else really has changed too much. On the I-29 overpass, I did note that the 30% cost estimate was presented to the board back in September. I could add now that the draft environmental impact statement or assessment is on the website as well.
And on that point, is it the rest of you have an interest in this? Between now and our next meeting, maybe taking a look at that website, us having a conversation about what's on there, and maybe authorizing Chairperson Bartley to file a comment on behalf of the Brookings County Commission, because I think we probably should be making a comment, but maybe we should talk about what that would be after we've reviewed it. What do you think?
And then, let's see, the next changes, I'm not sure. The Dairy Monument, the repair project out there was complete. We stopped out there as part of our bridge tour, kind of our county tour a few weeks ago, and got to see that. That is looking very, very nice. And I know the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Dairy chapter, is looking at putting in some landscaping, some things out there yet, and they're planning on having kind of a ceremony out there, I think next spring, next summer, as an anniversary of theirs that will be held out there at the monument, but it looks very, very nice. Samara Avenue, as I had mentioned earlier, that we've kind of formed that committee and that we met with those folks last week from Volga to start moving that project forward. And that's all of the changes that I had. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add to that?
I had a question, I'm sorry. The Communities in Excellence that you're going to those meetings, Stacy,
Yes.
there was a presentation last week at the Leaders Roundtable from multiple different entities working on that. Are you getting a feel for what benefit, if any, that's going to have for the county? What do you think?
You know, it's been interesting to kind of try to follow that process, and I think we're the Itasca project is the project that was presented at the leader roundtable last week. I think maybe following that model and some other ideas, we can maybe start moving forward a little bit and start implementing some things. So I have, you know, as it pertains to the county, I mean, we are kind of what they consider, you know, one of the entities that needs to play a part in what they're trying to do. You know, so far it's just kind of been a lot of trying to get to a process on what that looks like. And basically what it's trying to do is trying to develop, we identify community issues and opportunities, and then how do we move those forward? What does that look like? Does somebody want to kind of take the lead on whatever that issue or opportunity that sort of rises to the surface? And then who takes the lead in that? And and I know this, I'm speaking in very, very broad terms right now, right? Someone's stepping up and saying, yeah, I will lead an initiative to move this forward. So with the Itasca project, which is out of the Twin Cities area, is where that project is located. They actually have dedicated staff within I think it's called McKinstry, that don't necessarily oversee the projects, but they implement and have meetings and bring these groups together. And it's really CEOs and people from a number of businesses in the Twin Cities area that meet, and they have different meetings throughout the year to discuss what are some of the key issues in the Twin Cities area. And then they basically have somebody raise their hand and say, yes, this is near and dear to me, and I'm going to lead kind of the charge on whatever this issue or opportunity could be. So kind of trying to follow that model and some other discussions that we've had within the group. That's basically what we're trying to do, is set up this process. What does this look like? Because, you know, Brookings is pretty known for if there is an issue or an opportunity that people see, we've been pretty good about people stepping forward and really kind of taking the reins on that. But there's a whole bunch of different groups, but there's no formal process to that. And so it's kind of developing a group that would come together to bring some of those topics to the forefront, and then having someone say, yes, I want to take the charge and take the lead on this. And it's not going to, that's not this Communities of Excellence group. It's somebody else. But Communities of Excellence group would probably provide some support of some kind on what that looks like. So.
Any other questions? Anything else in your report?
No.
Hearing none. We'll go to the state's attorney's office report.
Tomorrow is actually our era, so it'll be interesting to see some of the safety precautions we've put in place, see how that turns out. The plan is to, it's a DUI third offense, so it is a felony, but those particular crimes are tried as a misdemeanor. It's actually the Part 2 information that makes it a felony, so there isn't a trial necessarily on the felony part. But the plan is to have some of the jurors report to Courtroom B, and then have the 18 jurors for the jury selection process to be seated socially distanced in Courtroom A, and then the judge is actually building a plexiglass barrier over the witness stand, and then I assume myself and the defense attorney will wear masks during the proceedings. We're not required to, but it'll be interesting to see what the response is in terms of tomorrow morning with some of the jurors reporting. No mask mandates have been put in place in our courtroom. I know other jurisdictions are doing that. So I think everything should be fine. I mean, we're going to try to make it as safe as possible. So
I thought I'd seen an email come out that said masks are required in the courtroom.
what's that?
I said I thought I'd seen an email come out that said masks are required in the courtroom.
Yeah, the magistrate court did that, but the circuit court hasn't. And I know other jurisdictions have done that, but for circuit court tomorrow, obviously we'll encourage it, but it's not required. So
Who's paying for the plexiglass?
to my knowledge, UJS is paying for that. So
Just curious.
We'll
I don't
find
know.
out.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. We're going to move into commissioner reports and discussion items. If there's any, we have some documents. ENR on Bobcat Farms and Kramer Farms. So we'll start our commissioner reports with Commissioner Pierce.
October 8th, we had a public affairs meeting. Tonight, for anybody that's listening, is the legislative forum for the Brookings County Commissioners, and the 3 people running for office will be on that forum, and you can submit questions if you'd like to do that. And I think it starts at 5:30. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as I indicated, I attended the Leaders Roundtable on October 14th, and we talked about communities of excellence. And I was just wondering how our operation will roll into that, and Stacy did provide some of that information. And I attended on October 15th our emergency meeting where we adopted the resolution putting a burn ban in place. With the snow, will that come off now? I don't know how that works, but
I stay in touch with Chief Hartman and Sheriff Marty, and when they let me know that it actually needs a resolution to rescind that burn ban, so that will come back before the commission. So yes, now with some of the moisture that we're receiving today, I don't know if they'll see that as enough to take that off, but I will be in contact with them, and they sure know that what needs to happen in order to take that off as well. So
that would be my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Boersma.
Burn ban special meeting. That same morning, we had that Samara Avenue meeting with city officials from Volga. Quick update on that. The discussion was to create an RFP and have that out by or before the end of 2020, soliciting service proposals from qualified engineering firms. The ask is going to be to subdivide the services provided into 3 phases. One that would be the kind of introductory background phase and concept development. The second, that's all the construction documentation. And the third phase would be all the construction administration services. Tentatively, we discussed that the kind of ideal situation would be to do the concept and background development in winter, spring of 2021, so that we have a schematic level potential cost estimate by June for our budgeting purposes. So that phase 1 would be completed by next late spring, early summer, we could take a look at feasibility in terms of our budget and our 5-year plan. If it looks good sooner or later, we can make that determination depending on kind of what budgeting needs to happen for us and the city of Volga. But the idea would be that we would be the project owner, since we'll maintain ownership of the road, but it will be a joint project with Brookings County and the city of Volga. If everything worked perfectly, you could potentially move straight into bidding the project in fall or winter of 2021 or 2022, depending on what year it makes sense to budget that. And then construction would begin the following spring. So we'll take a look at that. The solicitation would be available on the county's website, and then we'll release that to various bid letting services and plan rooms, so that that request for proposal will exist for Brookings County and other outlying engineering firms. So Brian, as you're talking to engineers, I think that would be a helpful thing to bring up as I'm talking to engineers or anybody else. Helpful thing to bring up. It will be available on the county's website once we get that authored, and we'll release that with the appropriate publishing requirements and all of that as well. So that's kind of the Samara Avenue project updates, if there aren't questions about that. And then October 17th, this last Saturday, was a Back to Blue law enforcement appreciation kind of parade. It was well attended. It was a pretty good event. So good to see folks out doing stuff like that as well. And then last night we had a Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness Board meeting, kind of discussing where we're at in terms of funding as we look towards year end, what services are being maybe over accessed versus under accessed. The needs in Brookings County have been increasing dramatically, and so it's important to recognize the importance of supporting that organization, because they are, as a community mental health provider, they are the ones that provide services when people can't afford to seek services. So it's been a tough go for them with COVID, and the demand for services just keeps increasing. So so that's kind of where we're at with that. That'd be my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Cook?
Burn ban meeting on the 15th. Call with our consultant for beta on how that's coming along, and they had a meeting with the school district and got some direction from them, and so our consultant is continuing to put together some drawings and numbers for that joint facility. It's continuing to be a work in progress, and as you probably know, dealing with 2 different boards and 2 different entities, it can move slow. That's kind of what's happening. So we're still optimistic that we can kind of continue to work through this and see if we can see the finish line, but we just got to continue to iron out costs, floor plans, and responsibility and stuff. So that's all I have.
If it was able to be 2 entities, any thoughts on when that completion date might be?
Yeah, see, the thing about it is our consultant is putting stuff together that is not even close to set in stone.
Right.
So we got to get the point to where both entities agree to say, yes, this is kind of the drawing we're looking at. Yes, these are kind of the numbers that we're hoping to come in at. And then, yes, let's do the RFP for the process. And so we're at the very beginning stages. That is still taking quite a while. And so, you know, our consultant's getting good feedback from the school district and their board members, and Beta's always, you know, on top of things on their side of it and stuff like that too. So we are still at the beginning stages of that, but we just need to get the final thumbs up that says, okay, we're okay with these dollars, they're okay with this dollars, we're okay with this plan and this position. Let's move forward and get the actual numbers and the actual plan designed. So,
and I understand all of that. I'm just trying to have a handle on, if everything went well, what would be the earliest that we'd be doing any
2022 probably.
22?
Yeah, probably the issue too is the grant availability, because we just don't know when these funds are available for beta on those grants. Sometimes they pop up within like a 2-month period. Next month, you have 2 months to get in, and this is the amount of money that's available for it. And so at that point, we need to kind of be ready to submit to say, look, this is the thing. And our consultant says, thinks that if we have this agreement and this setup, that we'd be very favorable to get that grant. Because of the collaboration between entities, and those grants like that type of thing of working together. And so that grant submittal and response will be up in the air. It could take 6 months to get that done. It could take 2 or 3 months, just depending, and COVID kind of has messed with all of those response times. And so, yeah, we're not ready yet, but as soon as we find that funding opportunity, we'll go. But I would guess it's a couple years out.
And so the earliest we'd be looking at doing any work on the highway shop would be 23 probably. The earliest.
I would say, unless we wanted to start, if we knew that this was moving forward, okay, that they were starting to do this stuff, if we wanted then to start looking at the piece of property that we have out there with the intention of purchasing Beta's garage, we could start planning and designing ahead of that and then just, use it. But if, but yeah, I would say 2023 is where we're going, unless we want to start putting some of our own funds ahead of it and see where we're at. I mean, I'll keep you up to date of where we're going, and you'll probably hear more, but I don't think we have to wait until it's completely done before we start or anything. I think our planning process could go. But, so, yeah, but that's probably right.
Anything else? Good. Thank you. Commissioner Jensen.
On the 6th, I filled in for Commissioner. And on the 15th, attended the emergency burn ban meeting we had here. And on the 11th, the same day, the Samara Avenue project over in Volga. We thank Commissioner Boersma for taking the lead on the RFP, and I think we got some direction where we're going now, and I clarified a few things. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Expansion construction meeting. I think we're, as Stacy had already mentioned, we're well on their way, and yes, we have the street tore up in about 3 different locations over there now, so there's a lot of activity going on. Also on the 8th, Stacy led an Ollie presentation for about an hour and a half on a Zoom meeting in her office that I sat in on, and she did a presentation of the county, and actually I learned a lot. She did a really nice presentation to that group, and they had some questions, and we were able to answer those. Is there anything else on that meeting that you'd like to talk about?
No, I was just actually, they reached out to me. It might have even been the end of last year, maybe early this year, and to give this presentation for OLLI, O-L-L-I, and it was scheduled, I think, initially for April in person, and of course, COVID hit, and that got postponed, and so we did a Zoom meeting, and I think we had, what did they say, 24, 25 participants, I think, that joined that, and so I gave that presentation a couple weeks ago now, and so no, it went well.
It went well.
Yeah, it went really well.
It went really well. Other than that, the other thing I guess I'd want to point out, and Larry and Brian can jump in on this if they'd like, but this presentation on the 20th Street Interchange was just released last night at 5 o'clock, and I have not had a chance to look at it yet, but I'd encourage everybody that's involved in the public to take a look at that presentation. So you'll see some projected layouts, I believe, or the suggested layout. I'm not sure what you're going to see. Suggested layout would be the presentation, so you can take a look at that, and the next steps in that process, one of you are going to have to tell me what's next after. There's public hearing, there's property acquisition, I assume.
There's landowner meetings. There's a lot of
landowner meetings. Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of it depends on the layout of what the overpass, the ramps will be. When they come determine that, they'll more move forward. But
okay.
It has quite a bit to do with landowner meetings.
Okay. So again, I don't know what the content is on the presentation the DOT put together, but it sounds like something that you and the general public in the county should look at and see what's going on. And I was gone on vacation after that, and I appreciate Larry taking over as vice chairman to run the meetings in my absence. Got back yesterday, late. Anyway, is there any other comments or any other business?
I just want to remind the board too, next Tuesday, the 27th, we do have, meet at 8 o'clock here, convene the meeting, and then go into exec session. You'll have about that first half hour to kind of go through what you want that to look like. And then the first review starts at 8:30, hopefully be wrapped up over half a day.
All right, we do not have an executive session required today, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Say, Dan,